In this video, I'm going to be installing the Bilstein B16 PSS10 Coilover kit as well as the Eurosport Street Camber Kit on my MK7 Golf Sportwagen. Oh man, am I excited about this video. I put a ton of work and time and effort into creating it and into installing this product onto my car, and I'm excited to finally share it with you. And there's a lot I want to share with you even before we get into it, but I will promise I will try to make it pretty concise. Two notes before we jump in. One is down below in the descriptions, because it's one of the things I'm always searching for. I included all the torque specs that I use, but please note I'm not a mechanic and I am not the service manual, so make sure to double check them. And two, use the chapters in this video to navigate to where you want to go. So let's start this video by talking about what the Bilstein B16 PSS10 Coilover kit even is. The PSS10 Coilover kit that I purchased includes the much loved Bilstein B16 shocks and struts, or dampers. These shocks feature a 10-way adjustable system which allows you to dial in your ride firmness from street use, which would start at 1, and as you crank that knob up, the ride will progressively get firmer, and in those higher numbers, you have something that could in theory be used at the track or for autocross. The kit also includes progressive rate springs and your typical spring adjusters to adjust ride height to suit your style and adjust the center of gravity as needed. I also mentioned that I picked up the Eurosport Street Camber Kit as well. This camber kit is slightly different from the other plate-based kits that you've seen pre-installed on many coilover options out there. These fit directly inside the upper strut mount on the front of the MK7 and offer the ability to add a positive or negative 1 degree of camber to the front of your vehicle. So now on to the why. Why even take the time to upgrade my suspension from the lowering springs that I already had, and why add the Eurosport Street Camber Kit? So let's start with the why for the coilovers. So I really enjoyed the drop my car received after installing the H&R Sport Springs when matched up with the stock dampers. The improvement in handling was also great, but there was one thing that drove me absolutely nuts about this, and that was the positive rake the body of the wagon had, meaning the rear end was about an inch higher than the front end. Not everything is about aesthetics, but for me, this is a little bit about aesthetics. So I wanted to even that out and even go a little bit lower, just due to my personal preference. Now with the adjustable coilovers, I get to do just that. Now why choose the B16 dampers? Because there is a PSS10 kit that includes the B14s. And for that, there's really two reasons. One, I like the ability to adjust the level of firmness as I see fit. I don't know if I'll ever track this car, but as it gets a little quicker and quicker, it's becoming a more appealing idea. But I definitely do still plan to drive this car daily and take my family around in it. So it needs to stay fairly comfy when driving around town. And in theory, with these shocks and struts, I'll be able to do both now. And number two, although there are a lot of adjustable dampers out there, the B16 is one of the few, and maybe the only one for the Sportwagen, that offers the ability to change the level of firmness while at ride height. And that's pretty awesome. You don't have to take anything off, and you can adjust the way your car rides right there. And finally, why go with the Eurosport Camber Kit? I'm going to be 100% honest with this one. I don't know that this camber kit was something I 100% needed or even wanted, but since I was going to be doing this install and working on the suspension anyways, it seemed like a great time to do it. And I guess in my head I was a little bit like, it's 1 degree of camber, whatever. So this was a choice based on others' experiences and not my own just yet. Many have shared that they love this product, and the additional 1 degree of negative camber is a pretty good starting point to give the MK7 improved performance and grip for track events and autocross. Also, as the car was going lower, the additional camber would allow the wheels to tuck in a little bit more without any rubbing. I chose this Eurosport Camber Kit over some of the other kits out there specifically because it promised 1 degree of camber paired with no additional noise. Many who have installed coilovers with camber plates make the addition of noise that they create seem like it's no big deal. But for me, that's a big deal. I already hate the wind noise that's on this car anyways. Now that you know the what and the why of this video, it's time to get started. But as you get ready to watch this video, I asked you one thing. I'd love your feedback in the comments below on how you like the editing style in this one. I changed it up a little bit, adding some music and some on-screen text, and forgoing the voiceover that I typically do on these longer installations. So let me know how you like it, and let's get started. All right. Today is the day we're going to install the Bilstein B16s. I'm super excited, but first I need to clean up the garage to make some room because there's kid toys everywhere. So So that wraps up my install of the PSS10 Coilover kit and the Eurosport Street Camber Kit. And in short, right now, I think it's fantastic and I love it. But there's always this euphoria after installing a new product. So I'm excited to drive with it on a regular basis, get to know the product a little bit better, and then share my thoughts in full. But let's get started with just a review of this install and let me share some details. And I'm going to get started by sharing, I guess, time it took and difficulty. So for this overall job, if you take out the filming and the editing and all the planning I did for it, I'd say it's about a 4-hour install job. And outside of some specific tools that you might need, such as a strut spreader, which you can also use a 1/4-inch adapter on a ratchet to use with that, and the M14 triple square, this job is pretty straightforward. If you're someone who's worked on suspension on your Mark 7 before, you can totally do this. Although it is time consuming and there's a few little pieces of knowledge that you'll need. So overall, I'd give it a 6 or 7 out of 10 on a difficulty scale. Next, what is my initial review? Well, overall, both products, the fit and finish of them was fantastic. Everything went together just as planned, super straightforward. My initial and very subjective ride quality assessment of the Bilsteins is pretty awesome. I'm riding around at about a 2 or a 3 right now, and that's the great part, is adjusting the firmness of the ride is super easy to do when at ride height. And overall, I love the new stance of the wagon. For me, it's the perfect low, and as my buddies in the Facebook group for Mark 7 wagons have termed it, adult low. And finally, I have about 2 notes or tips that I want to share with you. One, when I initially installed the suspension, immediately there was a terrible creaking noise when going over bumps and going down the driveway coming from the rear of the vehicle. I spent probably 4 nights after the kids went to bed tearing everything apart, essentially reinstalling the suspension in the rear 3 times over the course of those 4 days, over torquing things way more than I needed to just to see if that helped, removing the rear sway bar to determine if it was that, and I think I finally figured out what it was. And it was when I put the spring into the rubber boot that's in the transverse arm on the rear. You really need to make sure that it's 100% touching or aligned with that little tab in there. The other thing I did was I added some lithium grease to the bottom coils of those rear springs to help that when they get compressed and are pushing against each other in certain situations, they're not binding and sticking on one another and more sliding over, and it seemed to fix the issue. The other thing to know, if you're going to be using the Eurosport Street Camber Kit, which is common with most street camber plates, is that the nut at the top that holds the damper in place will no longer be accessible via the strut tower. What I did to accommodate for that, because I know that's a weak point of not the camber kits itself, but coilovers tend to come loose there. I wanted to be able to access that nut and check the torque on it or retighten it as needed. So I opened up that strut tower just a little bit to gain access and be able to use a ratchet on top. Alright, I probably should be wrapping up this video now. It's probably getting a little long, but thank you if you made it to this point for watching the whole thing and following along on this build with me. And also, in the comments below, please let me know what you think about this editing style. Help me choose which style to go forward with or keep mixing it up. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like and please consider subscribing to the channel. In the next video, I'm going to be doing what I hope to be a very comprehensive and somewhat scientific review of these Bilstein coilovers as compared to my previous setup and as compared to some other passenger cars. So I'm excited to share that one with you. Stay tuned.